I wanted to acknowledge the indigenous people who have been living here and who lived in Joshua National Monument, that area where they actually are, but were more springs and small oases. And they are the Chema Hui, the Serrano, the Mojave, and the Kahila, and they lived in this whole area until the Europeans came in 1796. So I wanted to honor them as our ancestors who lived here. So last night I talked about the cultivation of the wholesome and the skillful, and the abandoning of the unskillful. And we talked about ignorance and the harm and the ways, stories associated with the energies of greed, hatred, and delusion, and wrong view, and sloth, torpor, anxiety, restlessness, and doubt, which were the main energies that blossom out of the trunk of ignorance. And that the lawfulness of karma, according to the Buddha, in understanding these energies, is that they always bring suffering. So all those energies bring suffering, and if they aren't intervened with mindfulness and loving kindness. And then we talked a little bit about the beautiful qualities, beginning with faith and mindfulness and loving kindness and generosity, right? Non-greed, non-hatred. Faith, mindfulness, non-greed, non-hatred, and then it got so late. And so I wanted to continue in the vein of exploring the skillful energies, or the liberating energies. And many of you have said to me over these days, well, when I'm caught in a story or a tangle, what do? Once I've cut the storyline, what do? And the Buddha says in Right Thought, which is part of the Eightfold Path, to substitute the unskillful thoughts with the skillful thoughts, or the unskillful intentions with the skillful intentions. And so, not to bypass actually opening, and I'll talk about that a little later, the physical experience and atmospheric experience of the energies that bring suffering. We can't bypass them and say, okay, down with you. I'm not going to feel with you. I'm going to, may I be happy. So not quite that way, but offering the intention for bringing in the 4 Brahma Viharas, or the 4 divine abodes. And so these energies, for those of you who are new, are loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And they're called divine abodes because when we practice them and they begin to pervade through our mind and body, it's said that when we die, we actually are reborn in the realms of the gods. because one of the characteristics of the gods, and I'll come back to this, but one of the characteristics of the gods is a mind and a heart that pervades these four energies unconditionally. And in the realm, in the Buddhist cosmology realm, there are different spaces, places in the world that beings inhabit. And they inhabit these different places according to their wisdom, the concentration level, and how much of the Brahma Viharas or divine abodes pervade through them. And so in the suttas you will hear so many stories of different gods coming down to the Buddha and asking for teachings, for example, because it's said that the Buddha's wisdom and loving kindness was supreme in all worlds, including the God and angelic worlds. And so he said that the God that Christians interface with in visions and in being moved is in the realm that we can access through our own practice when we're reborn. So new and interesting, you can sit with it and see. That's in a way just to acknowledge how pervasive and beautiful these energies are, and we know that in some way or another. I don't know if I should say we know it or not, but they are healing and beautiful energies. So it's said that there are particular benefits from practicing them. And this is from the Visuddhimagga. And it's said that when we practice loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, that we sleep in comfort, we wake in comfort, and we don't have difficult or evil dreams. We are dear to human beings and to non-human beings. Deities, some of the beings in these different angelic realms, guard us. Fire, poison, and weapons do not affect us. Our minds are easily concentrated. We die unconfused. And if we penetrate no higher, we will be born with the gods. Pretty good, huh? So all of these energies are energies that are unconditional. They're not called into being through preference or through this wish. Well, I like you, so I'll send you loving kindness, but I don't like you, so I'm not going to send you loving kindness. These energies are energies that are rooted in a heart without preference, which is why they become divine. And it's said that one of the contemplations to help us become unconditional in our loving kindness is to consider that we have been alive for eons and eons and eons and great cycles of the earth and time, uncountable, the Buddha said, uncountable eons. And that in that case, every human being has been our mother or our father, a sister or gender non-conforming or niece or cousin or a family member or a lover or a partner. That everyone actually alive we have been in some kind of relationship with. And so, when I was thinking about this, then I thought about my exes. I have quite a few of them, and I, and I can honestly say, even though our intimate relationships have ended, and sometimes they ended with not so nicely, especially when I was younger, that because I've been close with them, because I've touched them, because I've shopped with them, because I've lived my life with them, I can honestly say that I wish love and good health and well-being to every single one of them. And so then if I extend what the Buddha is saying, that everyone has had that kind of relationship with me. And it just, as I was thinking about that and thinking, wow, what a deep reframing of all human beings. Even reframing it with my cousins, like I have some cousins in Israel who are very strong Zionists and anti, just to say that, and we have very, very different perspectives. But if I imagine this cousin in particular, who's a farmer in Israel, as an ex of mine, then I feel totally different. And so what would it be like to hold everyone in that particular way? And I'm thinking of it because as I was contemplating in my slightly scattered way this Dhamma talk, I thought of Aung San Suu Kyi, because I have her name in so many Dharma talks as invitation for reverence and appreciation and inspiration, right? And now for those of you who don't know, she was an activist for democracy in Burma, that's now Myanmar, and was on house arrest for 12 years and actually practiced the Dhamma diligently and really refused to talk negatively about the army generals who were in power. And then she came to power, and that deeply conditioned racism that she grew up with means that she has not intervened in the dislocation and murder and rape of the Rohingya people. And so when I thought about that, I got, wow, when I read that invitation of the Buddha for loving kindness to see everyone in through these eons that you've been related to, I would glance over it because it didn't really that just is a little way out in eons and living eons and not very close to here and now in a way in my life and how I understand it. But then when I saw Aung San Suu Kyi's name in my old meta notes, I got it. I got how that conditioned separation means that we can be really we can be loving to one group of people, even people who we might consider our enemy, and still be incredibly racist. And so I love this invitation of, well, how can we become unconditional in our loving kindness and compassion, in our appreciative joy and equanimity? What are the ways that we can break down the walls that we've built inside of us around difference that stops us being unconditionally loving to every human being. Because in the metta practice we do, we start with ourselves, but then we go to all beings, and that includes the people at the World Bank, it includes the people in the Senate, it includes the men who beat up the 36 young Indian girls who were standing up for equal rights in their school just a few months ago. It includes everyone. And honestly, the only way I can get there is by making everyone that close to me that they are X's. It doesn't mean I have to agree with them. It doesn't mean I don't hold them accountable. But it means that I can wish them well, just without any hesitation. So these energies are unconditional in that we are like a heart of sunshine that shines indiscriminately on all of life. So then there are these three energies. There's the four energies that are an expression of love. There's loving kindness, which is symbolized as a mother cow licking her calf after her calf is born. And I love that because that deep, immediate caring for new birth and the vulnerability of a new being coming into the world, and how even though we know the reality is that that calf might go through some many difficult experiences, might actually even go to be slaughtered, it doesn't mean that the mother cow doesn't offer unconditional friendliness for the well-being of her baby calf. That's the energy of loving kindness. And that's something that I know is living here in this room. If I got up, for example, and tripped over this carpet, every one of you would immediately be responsive with caring. Is she hurt? Or if any one of you fell down, exactly the same. We would all immediately, unhesitatingly be moved to care for us. That's that energy of caring that's living inside of us. And for those of you who weren't here this afternoon, I quoted this poem from David Whyte that's very famous, and there's this one line that says, we are re-teaching ourselves our loveliness. And that's really the understanding that we have this heart actually living inside of us, a heart that is already in its capacity able to love, and that it's become obstructed by the unskillful energies and the wounding and the cultural conditioning, but it doesn't mean it isn't there. And that we know through different events that we have experienced that unconditional love. And so then going back to faith as the forerunner of this energy and of all the four energies, that faith of, yes, it's there. The question isn't that it isn't there, the question is, how do I access it and awaken it? And that's why we've developed, all kinds of different metta practices to help us awaken this energy inside of us. there was this amazing man. He was gay, and he was out, but he was Catholic. So he was out to us, my family, but not in this church. He was called Brother Roger, and he was active in the anti-apartheid movement. And after my parents came out of jail, I was really angry at them, because even though I kind of knew intellectually they were doing good work, as a kid I didn't really understand it, and I was pissed. And I was nasty, and I was rebellious and obstreperous, and of course now in retrospect they were in their own trauma. You know, just like immediately leaving the country, no money, first in Israel, a country with a whole different language, and just the trauma, that difficulty. And then they had this kid who was like hell. And so all their friends took pity on them, and I got all these lectures about your parents are so great and they're so courageous, and you're being so nasty to them, and you need to be a good daughter, and of course I just got even worse. And then there was Brother Roger, who came, who I don't know if my parents said talk to her, but he came and he just stroked me. He just like asked me to come and sit next to him, and it wasn't sexual at all, and just held me and said, you know, I know it's tough. I imagine it's been horrible, and tell me about it. And it was so beautiful to have that non-judgmental expression of caring in that moment. Just that. And it reminds me of, well, I won't go to that story now. Anyway, so just those moments that we've experienced and that we've offered as well is testimony to the reality of the power of loving kindness. And then there is compassion, which is the heart which resonates in empathy with suffering. And I love compassion particularly because I don't think that these energies of love and appreciative joy and equanimity and compassion actually live in a heart that hasn't felt suffering and open to it and faced it and lived with it. That when the Buddha says that suffering is the condition for the path and for our liberation, I really get it. Because in opening to the depth of our suffering and pain, there is a particular strength and capacity to have empathy with others that makes love real, right? And it's so different from the kind of love that doesn't include our suffering. So I wanted to, I don't know if I can do it because there's no internet here, but let's see if I can do it. I wanted to read the story that's a mixture of love and compassion. See if I can do it. This is a story by that Mansour Adafi has written. He was he wrote this, and he says, When I was 19 years old, I was shipped to Guantanamo detention. I didn't know where I was and I had no idea why I was there. I asked, what have I done? And they said, we don't know. They said, our job is to interrogate you and ask you questions. They told me, you're Egyptian, your name is Adele, and you're a general. I am from Yemen, actually, the Arab Peninsula, the country of love. We didn't know what was going to happen to us there, and we didn't know for how long. I think he was in Guantanamo for 16 years in solitary. But then they moved him and 780 detainees to a camp. So this is what he says. So imagine you are 780 detainees and 48 nationalities. You have teachers, doctors, divers, pilots, engineers, soldiers, all kinds of people. It is a society, actually, so we learn from each other. In our society, to know more about women is like a forbidden thing. It's very limited information. So like one of the detainees there, he was watching us starving to know about married life, about everything. So he decided to start a class here about marriage. We started teaching each other classes. We gathered around, each of us in his cell, and we started our class. Like I remember we had a journalist from Al Jazeera. He gave us a good course about journalism, how it works, how to make interviews, and so on. So many single detainees began showering those who were married with questions. What does a woman look like? How is the relationship? In our society, to know more about women is a forbidden thing. It's very limited. So one of the detainees there, he was watching us starving to know about married life. He started a class. He was a father, he was a husband, he was a lover. Actually, he was a professor of Arabic literature. And Arabic literature involves a lot of love stories and poetry and so on. He taught us first how to flirt. How do you talk to the woman? What kind of words, the gifts, body language, face expressions. This is how you affect a woman. This is how a woman looks at you. This is how a woman perceives you. We were very happy. The news of this marriage class spread like a flame. He taught us how to love our family, how to build a family. He tried to get us to appreciate women in our life. He said, I want to ask you a question. Imagine this world where there is no such thing as woman. There's no mother, sister, girlfriend, nothing. Just men, all men. We can't imagine life like that. He was like someone slapping you in the face. Some of the married people who attended our class, when you start to talk about love, how to develop a loving relationship with your wife, some of them said, we're very sorry how we treat women. Really, I'm sorry how we lived. And they started like, I think we're going to be different now. One day when I was writing letters to my sisters, one of the detainees came to me and he said, Mansoor, if you were married and you have a wife and you wanted to write to them to tell them how much you love them, how much you miss them, to keep love alive, what are you going to write? And I said, okay, give me time. I've never been in love before and I never have a wife, but something comes to my heart. In Arabic, we have a very good phrase like, to my heart, like, I love you. You are my heart beating. And I started putting it into words. So I wrote a letter. He loved it so much he sent it to his wife. Then the word spread that I'm writing letters for my brothers, and more detainees came to me. Can you write me this letter? They have feelings, but they can't put them in words, and people like my writing. It wasn't that good, but to my age and to my level of education, it seems good. I miss you, I miss your kisses, I miss your jokes, I miss your anger. I miss those mornings. I miss you when you used to throw water in my face trying to wake me up. One day I was looking at the fence, then I saw a little lizard. I never saw an iguana in my life. I give her a name. Its name is Princess, so I call her, come here, come here. She would come running to me. I used to feed her with my hands, apple or banana or dates. It's one of our traditions as Arabs, especially in my country, Yemen. If we eat, we must invite everyone around and share our food. We developed a very good relationship with those animals. We had some birds too. There were snakes, we had banana rats, then we had cats. They were actually born there with us, so we took them and fed them and cleaned them. If guards caught me feeding those animals, I was punished. But that's okay, I don't care. Because when you feed those animals, you feel love. When you feel love, you feel happiness in your heart. And it connects to your soul, actually, and it gives you comfort. I feel there is something missing always. My life's not complete because I've never been with a woman. I've never been in love, and I don't know how it feels. I would like to marry someone, and I don't care if she's a Muslim, a Jew, or a Christian. I remember one day in our marriage class we made a pretend wedding for one of the detainees. Actually, it was a Yemeni traditional wedding. It was like the end of the class. Then we chose one of our brothers. He was a little troublemaker. This guy is going to marry today. We agreed on a wife, one of the other brothers, to be a bride. And our brother put on the sheet around him and on his head like a Yemeni wedding. We sang, we danced on the bed all night. We started dancing and moving to Afghani and then back to Pakistan and then Saudi dancing, and we brought some moves. It was a lovely moment. It was like you live in hell, but in that hell you find some kind of moment, like you will never ever forget that moment, even now. And I know that story was very heterosexual and traditionally gendered. Thank you, Booker. But what I loved about it is that there was that movement to love, that in that context, still this urge to feed an iguana and to have a marriage ceremony and dance with another prisoner and pretend that you're getting married, and actually this is a kind of shortened version. This was in Snapchat. Is that, yeah, that program on the radio? And he talks about getting married to this prisoner and all these feelings coming up because of the ceremony and because they're all exploring love together. So just this, wherever we are and however we are, this movement of the heart to want to learn about love. So beautiful, isn't it? Wow. It's raining. Oh my God, it's the first rain of the season. Sometimes they talk about metta as sunshine, and sometimes they talk about it as rain, that it's like a rain that nourishes every plant indiscriminately. Every part of the earth gets nourished by the rain. Did you see the rainbow? Yeah, wasn't it? It's like, what a blessing. So, the reason also that I love that particular story about love is because, and it wasn't in the writing, he talks about the tremendous suffering of isolation in Guantanamo first, and just how difficult it was to survive. And in that context, that movement to love. So wanting to acknowledge how much opening to our suffering is like that simile that I talk often about is mindfulness, with the stone dropping down through the waters to the bottom, rather than being a cork bobbing around on the surface. And that's how suffering works for love. That as we plunge or dive into our own suffering and live with it, there's something about that when we love, that love is deep and beautiful. And so I understand why the Buddha said, how he framed his teachings of liberation by starting with suffering, because it is in that opening of the heart as we open to our suffering that space is created to love so deeply and strongly. Not that kind of affectionate love, where it's like, I'll give you this if you give me that. Not that kind of attached that we think is love but isn't love, but more that love that comes from understanding our humanity and our pain, and with that the capacity to love. That's so beautiful. And I don't know if any of you have heard of Paul Farmer, who started Partners in Health in Haiti, but really a totally amazing man. And he would walk for days to go visit families up in the villages who didn't have access to health. And people would say, why are you spending all this time just going to 2 families when you could be in the clinic serving lots of people? And he said, how can you make one person more important than another? Every person deserves good health and medical support for that. Well, he didn't say that. I don't know what he said. But he would walk 7 hours a day to go to people who weren't able to come to the clinics that he set up. That kind of love and compassion together, it's so beautiful. So then going back, because I notice it's getting on, going back to what the Buddha said about right intention, that when we open to the energies inside of ourselves of suffering and meet them, the gateway into that meeting is the gateway of metta or karuna. It's that, may I meet you, may I meet you, may I hold your suffering, may your suffering come to an end, or may you feel my love, may you feel embraced. And then in that environment, we drop into the body and feel the energies in the body of whatever those old defenses are. And then we come out again to something neutral. And if we find ourselves at the beginning of the cycle again, then we go through the cycle again. But that's the power of right intention and right thought on the Eightfold Path, that turning with the intention to care for, and how it then replaces the unwholesome thoughts of I hate you, or I hate them, or whatever it is. I want, I hate, I don't care. what's President Trump's wife wearing the sweatshirt, the jacket, I don't care on it, right? You remember? That's what she wore. Going on some trip, I don't care. Something like that. So that is such an expression of a wounded heart, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, to not only feel it, but to feel that you should be proud of that. That it's some great mark to say I don't care. So that's the opposite. So then I didn't say anything about equanimity, and I just want to, which is the last of them, and so I just want to read this as an expression of equanimity. Equanimity is a heart and a mind that has no preference, which is such an incredible vision of and invitation to feel our preferences but not to act on them, to notice it come up, I want, I don't want, I like, I don't like, and just to notice it and to keep disentangling and disentangling from the noticing until the mind and heart are like a mountain, unmoved by the changing conditions that we find ourselves in. And that's that is the deepest expression of loving kindness, compassion, and appreciative joy, because it builds the heart to that strength when there's no movement towards or against anymore. And that's the jumping off point for liberation and awakening. And just to say that it comes from these two ways. It comes from mindfulness, from noticing the arising and passing of all phenomena, and it comes from the practice of the other three practices, loving kindness, compassion, and appreciative joy. That when there's that much stability in the mind from focusing on these energies over and over, the mind gets stronger and stronger. So this is from Etta Hillman, and she wasn't in Auschwitz. She was in Treblinka, I think. And she died in the camp. And she managed to hide her diaries in a wall in the camp. She took out a stone, and then someone found the diary, and it got published. And she says she was amazing. She says, how exotic the jasmine looks, so delicate and dazzling against the mud-brown walls. I can't take in how beautiful this jasmine is, but there's no need to. It is simply enough to believe in miracles in the 20th century, and I do, even though the lice will be eating me up in Poland before long. I see the visions of poisonous green smoke. I am with the hungry, with the ill-treated and the dying every day. But I'm also with the jasmine and with that piece of sky beyond my window. There is room for everything in a single life. So just a reminder for us again as a community that every intention to love, to care, to appreciate, to be equanimous, is building the conditions for that flowering inside of us individually and as a community. Just every moment of intention or thought, may I. And even if you don't believe it, the intention still brings fruition. So, may we uncover our radiant hearts of unconditional love and compassion, appreciative joy and equanimity. May there be room for everything in our single life.